Heather and Ferg from New Old Friends again with Chapter 9 of Crimes Against Christmas.
A comedy advent calendar for your ears.
Lovely.
Thank you, I enjoyed that, yeah.
After the murder of Betty the cook, Artridge has no shortage of suspects or theories, but just wants to get to bed and rest. Let's keep going with the story. Chapter 9. Sweat Dreams.
By this point, I'd utterly exhausted all my reserves of energy and wanted nothing more than to throw myself upon my bed as a penitent wife throws herself upon the mercy of her cuckolded husband. A phrase no doubt suggested to me by who I found in my room once I dragged myself up the stairs. Lord de Planus was perched on the corner of my bed, fiddling with the edge of the blanket, working the tassels like prayer beads.
Ah, Artridge, just the man. Can I speak with you?
I was both weary and wary of winding up embroiled in another intense conversation, but de Planus was so obviously agitated there wasn't a route to his removal without hearing him out. Of course, your lordship. How can I help?
Well, I'm just about at my wit's end here.
Yes, I think we're all feeling the strain somewhat. I'm sure we're all very tired and the outlook will be a little brighter after some sleep. He remained unmoved, despite the 100-ton hint that had just dropped past him.
But it's my house, my staff, my cook. I just can't believe it. I mean, Betty was no favourite of mine, not a warm person. But to do that to her, who could do such a thing?
Well, as you know, most fingers are pointing to Mr. Drummer at present.
Did you say most?
De Planus's muscles tensed slightly. I thought so. If my diction is poor, it's probably because I'm so awfully tired, Lord de Planus. Another hint whistled down unnoticed.
Most, but not all, then.
I half stifled a yawn with a meaningful look toward my pillow, but this chap paid no attention to any of the hints I'd been chucking around like a hyperactive flower girl at a wedding, so I gave up. I was very tired. Have I mentioned I was tired? And I just wanted him out of my room and hoped playing along would achieve that quickest. No, not at all, your lordship, I sighed.
I was damned impressed with the way you took the wheel earlier. Someone had to wrest the reins from my father-in-law down there. Need someone with a level head driving us on with their hand on the tiller, and you're just the man to lead this march.
I admit I was flattered he wanted me in charge of the journey, even if he couldn't seem to decide upon the metaphorical mode of transport.
No doubt others have come to you with their concerns, as I have, eh?
He continued with a playful nudge to my ribs.
People need leadership, Artridge. So, who else is in the picture then? And who is it that is at the easel with brush in hand?
Well, to speak candidly... May I sit? Thank you. To speak candidly, Father Vickers believes there may be something afoot amongst the other guests. Says he can smell guilt. Probably spiritual nonsense, but it did get me thinking about your Italian friend.
Don Crimine?
Exactly. How do you two know each other? He said you had an old friend in common when we first spoke. Perhaps I should have been concerned about pressing too hard and revealing my investigator alter ego, but these were extraordinary circumstances, so I thought it was worth the risk. Plus, I really was very tired.
It's a little embarrassing.
De Planus shifted uncomfortably on the bed. At first, he attempted to cross his legs, but lost his balance and began to topple backward, forcing him to fling his limbs forward to stay upright. It looked like the beginning of a very complex calisthenics routine. I took hold of his elbow to steady him and used the moment to slip in a risky question. Does it perhaps have something to do with certain pieces of art in the Richtenstein collection?
The art in the Richtenstein collection,
he echoed. Panic fleetingly entered his eyes before he regained control and shook his arm free of my support.
Well, you clearly already know about it, so I may as well tell you.
Tell me about what, your lordship?
Some of the works in the collection weren't technically collected, per se. Or rather, they were collected, but perhaps not in the accepted way, if you follow my drift.
Crimine did hint at something of the sort. I left a pause. It's a classic investigative technique, very sophisticated. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so too do most witnesses and suspects. They can't help themselves from filling a silence. De Planus couldn't resist.
But I swear, Artridge, until recently I had no idea. Well, that's why he's here. I want them out of the collection ASAP, but I needed to do so quietly. I could hardly ship them to Sotheby's and claim I just found them, could I?
He looked beseechingly at me.
You have to believe me, Artridge. I wouldn't lie to you. You'd see right through me in any case.
His flattery wasn't going to get him off the hook quite so easily. You've already lied to me once. You told me Turtle was the only guest you knew, but now you say you've invited Don Crimene too.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry. I knew instantly that I'd made a mistake by not coming clean straight away, but I didn't know you then, hadn't seen the measure of the man you are. You were an unknown art expert and dealer, exactly the sort of person I had to hide my connection to Crimene from most of all. I thought you'd expose me in a heartbeat and look to profit from your newfound knowledge. But the second I saw the way you've conducted yourself in this crisis, with such poise and honour, I kicked myself for not confiding in you earlier. It's why I came here tonight, to unburden myself to you.
I still wasn't fully convinced, although much of what he'd said did make sense. He could obviously see that I was wavering and pushed on.
Anyway, even if I was planning something with Crimene, which I'm absolutely not, you understand, some stolen artworks are hardly a priority with a murderer on the island, are they? I've told you what I wanted to tell you. I trust you'll keep this to yourself while you lead us through this ordeal, and only make your judgment once it's done. Whatever you choose, I'm sure will be just and fair. I'll leave you now.
Good night, Lord de Planus. I hope you and her ladyship get some rest.
Yes, Lucy must have really exerted herself, what with all her searching with Crimene. She's absolutely shagged out, poor thing. Good night.
I let the moment pass without comment. Finally, de Planus left and I could rest. I removed my shoes and hung my clothes up before gratefully crawling under the sheets, pulling the blanket over me for warmth. My bedside lamp cast a pleasant warm light as I reviewed my notes from the day. I had no shortage of theories about what might have happened or be happening, but very little which tied the loose ends together. If one followed Vickers' suggestion that Drummer was not villain but victim, who could possibly be responsible? What could link he and Betty? The Duke had suggested a crime of passion with Drummer as the perpetrator, but what if, in fact, the American had witnessed someone else committing the act and in doing so bought himself a dirt nap? De Planus and Crimene were openly in league to commit a crime, smuggling stolen art. But does that make it more or less likely they'd be liable to commit 2 murders? It seems unlikely. De Planus doesn't have the stomach for it, and Crimene strikes me as too clever by half. On top of all of this, I'd completely lost sight of the case I was supposed to be solving by midnight the following day, Christmas Eve. The planned theft of the Fabergé Bauble. Look, I know it's crass that I was thinking of money when there was murder about, but whoever had hired me hadn't been wrong. I needed the money. I'd need to pay closer attention tomorrow to get to the bottom of both cases. My sleep was fitful. I tossed and turned all night long, and my dreams were filled with disturbing visions. First, I saw a shower of ornate baubles raining down onto Betty's bloody corpse. Then Drummer stalking the island's darkest recesses, spitting gobbets of tobacco at which he swung a lead pipe like a baseball bat. The final image was the worst. Don Crimene and Lady de Planus were engaged in the most acrobatic acts of coitus imaginable, a physically unsustainable tangle of limbs and lips. Behind them, Butler was demanding young Missy make them refreshments while Father Vickers presided over the whole thing, dousing the scene in holy water and alternately blessing himself and damning the sinners. It was a small relief when Lord de Planus entered the picture with his eyes burning fire. He opened his mouth to shout, but his jaw kept extending lower and lower until it was a vast gaping maw into which he swept all and sundry. I awoke that Christmas Eve covered in sweat, awoken by a terrible scream which echoed throughout the house. It was male, but this one was definitely not mine. Not that any of the others have been. In my drowsy state, the noise appeared to come from the outside, but both above and below me. Who could it have been? My dream had left me with a sense of dread, and I had a strange premonition that the scream was Don Crimene's. Had he and Lady de Planus attempted to greet the day in their special way and Lord de Planus caught them at it? Or had Lady de Planus simply confessed to her husband, who had then flown into a violent rage? There were certainly other explanations available, but the more I thought about it, the more certain I was there had been an Italianate inflection to the scream. I dressed hastily and hurried towards the stairs to find out more. As I passed along the corridor, Michelle's head appeared at the door of the room she shared with Turtle.
What happened?
She asked. Someone screamed, didn't you hear?
No, I must have been asleep. Terry can snore pretty loudly, so sometimes I wear earplugs. Maybe it woke me up without me realising, though. Who was it?
I don't know, but I intend to find out.
Should I wake Terry up and come down?
No, it's fine, you stay here. I don't know why, but I felt compelled to add, and keep your door locked. I hastened on down the curve of the stairs. There was some commotion in the parlour, so I headed there. Fucktofino, Vickers and the Duke were clustered around the bay window. Taking up one half of the bay was a tastefully decorated Christmas tree, and the three onlookers were packed so tightly to the other side I couldn't see past them to what they were looking at.
"He's ruined the bloody rose bush, the silly bugger,"
moaned the Duke. His manner didn't seem all that grave, so my heart rate slowed slightly. Still, though, none of the three appeared able to tear their eyes from whatever they were staring at so intently through the glass. The princess reached a hand back and waved it at me, possibly under the assumption I was the butler, but I can't be sure she didn't just view us all as her servants.
I am thinking I would very much like a drink for my nerves,
She said without looking back, just a snap of her fingers.
Ah, yes, I think we could all do with a good stiff drink.
Now Vickers was at it, ordering me about like the staff. None of the three had even so much as glanced in my direction. Vickers and Fucktofino sounded much more shaken, causing my blood to once again pump fast. I ignored their requests, and employing a decent dose of elbow work, pushed between them to see what was so fascinating. In my 100 years and 12 prior to alighting on the Isle of Liechtenstein, I'd not seen a single disfigured corpse, which now I realised to be highly fortunate on my part, as clearly here it was an everyday occurrence. My ears had not deceived me. The scream I had heard was Criminet's, and had indeed come from outside, above, and beneath me as he fell from a great height.
So, Criminate bites the dust.
Bugga-dum-dum-dum. Ba-digga-dum. Don't sing for copyright reasons, please, Heather.
Oh, sorry. Be honest, do you think Criminate was the killer?
We'd love to know who you think it was what done it.
Let us know on social media at New Old Friends.
New old friends. Bye.